One of the strange mistakes I notice in Heroes of History Epic Empire is almost nobody worry about heroes until the game forcing them. And honestly, I completely understand why. When you start an account, heroes are boring. Damage is exciting. You pull, for example, Tutankhamun, you pull Achilles, you see huge numbers, you clear campaigning stages, you jump forward in progression. Everything tell you that damage is the answer. And this is for a while. It actually is. That make this mistake so dangerous because the game teach you a lesson early that become completely wrong later. In the late game, you're going to see completely different heroes with completely different abilities just from doing damage. I started thinking about this after seeing multiple players hit campaigning wall recently. At first, I assumed it was the usual stuffs. Wrong levels, wrong heroes, not enough power. But then I noticed something strange. A lot of those accounts actually had very strong carries. Some had stronger carries than actually the mine, and I already finished this campaign. And yet, they were still getting stuck. So the obvious question become, how can somebody that have monster, Tutankhamun, or maybe King Minos, or maybe Medusa, tons of damage, and for example, and Medusa tons of damage, and still be struggling? Then I noticed the common pattern. The damage wasn't the problem anymore. The healing was. And that's when I realized something. The healer mistake doesn't hurt you when you make it. It hurt you months later. That's why so many players never see it coming. When you ignore the healer today, nothing bad happens. Your damage dealer still carry, your compound still moves, your accounts still grow. Everything looks fine, which creates a dangerous false belief, and players start thinking, maybe I don't need a healer. Maybe damage is all that matter. Maybe I'll build healer later. And honestly, that's exactly what I used to think also. I was focusing over my damage dealers. I even have a tank. I was thinking, okay, Caesar, you know, is having this 3 seconds invisible, doesn't actually receive some kind of damage. On top of that, if I combine Caesar with my, for example, Abraham Lincoln, the Abraham Lincoln is going to give extra 3 seconds. And this is making something like a chain of supportive, avoiding the damage, let's say it like this. But at one point, I hit also the wall where I actually was needing the healer. But at the beginning, that was exactly what I was also thinking too. But here's the weird part. The stronger your account becomes, the more healing starts to matter. Which sounds backwards. Should strong heroes need less healing? Apparently not, because I start noticing another pattern. The fights that stop progression are rarely easy fights. They are fights that last longer. The fights where your heroes survive longer enough to sustain to matter. The fight where one extra heal change everything. The fight where you're almost winning. And those are most frustrating losses in the game because you're not getting destroyed, you're losing by a tiny amount. One more ultimate, one more ability execution, one more rotation, one more heal, one more chance, and suddenly the hero you ignore 6 months ago start looking very important. That's when things get interesting. When the people start actually start actually thinking over the fight and start looking at their roster, what kind of heroes they're having. And it's actually interesting this part because I start paying attention to which heroes players regret not building. And surprisingly, it wasn't always damage dealers. It was usually a support heroes. It was a healers. Some heroes for sustain or some for utility. The stuff nobody get excited about when opening the summons. And that creates another question. Why do so many players keep making the same mistake? And I think the answer is actually pretty simple. Damage give immediate feedback. Healing give delayed value. When your damage dealer giant 10 levels, you see it immediately. You kill things faster, you clear content faster, you feel stronger. A hero doesn't always give you that feeling. Sometimes they don't even look impressive, which make them very easy to ignore. Until the game changed the question. And Heroes of History Epic Empire loves changing the question. Early game ask, can you kill this? Later game ask, can you survive this? Then it asks, can you survive this multiple times? Then it asks, can you build multiple teams? And this is, the people are start getting this not very early, but for example, in the treasure hunt, you have this feeling, and other places where you basically have to build many teams. And also, for example, Tesla Storm is also a place where you're going to need multiple teams. Then it asks, can all these teams sustain themselves? And suddenly your account isn't judged by one hero anymore. It's judged by your roster. That's where I think many players get trapped because they keep solving yesterday problems, not tomorrow one. And I think Tesla content is one of the best examples. I've been seeing players suddenly realize they don't actually have enough healing options. And this is maybe the most bright example because in the treasure hunt you can basically use green heroes that majority of them are actually healers, but in the Tesla Storm with no healer you cannot move that fast. You cannot go that much in the future. I recently get a healer that is actually a purple one. If I can find her, she should be somewhere here. Okay, where is she? Okay, it's going to be this one here. Yeah, this is, look at this thing, brother. It's like 3 healers, and I get lucky to get Nitocris, which abilities, give dealing some damage and heal do some healing. So this is important for my Tesla Storm progression at the end of the day. Not because so yeah, you just have to have healing options. And this is not because they make a mistake that week, because they make a mistake months earlier. The investment decision was already made. The consequences just arrive later. That realization completely changed how I look at hero progression. Now, when I see a new damage dealer, I don't automatically ask how much damage can they do. I ask what problem are they solving. And if the answer is the same problem another hero I already have is already solving it, maybe this is not actually helping my account. Meanwhile, a hero can completely change what content become possible. And that's where I think most players underestimate roster value. Not hero value, roster value. They are so two different things. A hero can be amazing, a roster can be weak. That's a lesson I had to learn the hard way. Then I noticed another contradiction. Players who complain the most about healers are often the players who invest the least into them. They're basically not investing in their healers, but instead they're complaining about the healers. Which sound obvious, but think about it. We don't usually blame ourselves. We blame the fight, we blame the stage, we blame the balance, we blame the bad luck. Sometimes it's work related, but sometimes the account is simply missing a tool. And healing is one of those most common missing tools I have ever seen. Not because healers are weak, because players assume they're always going to build them later. And maybe that's the most expensive assumption in the game. Because progression isn't really about what your account can do today, it's about what your account will need tomorrow. And the funny thing is that if you build heroes early enough, you rarely notice how value they were. The account just feels smooth, campaigning feels easier, special content feels easier, everything feels manageable. And something I can say from my personal experience is, especially for the campaigning, is when I go over the campaignings, sometimes is one or two or three specific heroes I have to have. And those heroes are like 99.9% from the times not the damage dealers. It's either going to be a support with some, like Abraham Lincoln with some crazy spell, or it's going to be either healer who is, for example, fast healer, or something like this, or some utility hero, or some tank, specific tank, because it's different when I can give an example with the tanks. Is way more different when you have Caesar and when you have King Minos in form of tanking. But anyway, everything is looking manageable when you have the roster, which means good hero investment often don't get credit. You only notice them when they're missing, and that's probably the biggest realization it took away from I took away from all this. Damage gets the screenshots, damage get the excitement, damage get the attention, but heroes quietly keep your account alive. And a lot of players don't realize that until the day they suddenly need one. Then they are not choosing which hero to build, they are choosing which problem they can solve. And those are two different, very different situations. So now I'm curious, did you invest into heroes early? Or are you one of the players that thought the damage would solve everything? Because looking back at my own account, I think this is one of those mistakes that I feel that feels completely harmless when you make it, and incredibly obvious once you finally see it. And this is the thing I did with my accounts. I go for Nea. I level up this hero that you basically get for free. And I was thinking, okay, this hero is going to carry my account. Then I turned to a Shoko trying to carry my account. But in reality, I was needing also other heroes. It's not, I'm talking here about the heroes, but it's basically the roster itself. So yeah, this will be for this video, guys. Really hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to hit one like, subscribe. You can become a member if you want to support my work directly. I wish you a great day, and see you in the next video.